Well, the Premier League is in full swing again, 3 games in, and like death and taxes and the rise of beta male left wing Maoist authoritarians like Keir Starmer, it's reassuring to know that certain things are inevitable. And in this instance, it's the gleaming, resentful, preying pack of hyenas baying for blood after yet another slow start by Manchester United. And I must admit, I was guilty of a feisty reaction myself after that defeat to Liverpool. I'd had a few beers that afternoon and, I was feeling a little testy after suffering through a nauseatingly bland Old Firm match. So I felt a little entitled to have a rant. Please see previous video if interested. But now that the dust has settled and the hangovers subside and calmer heads have prevailed, I thought I'd revisit the scene of the crime and at the very least try and make sense of what was a topsy-turvy day. And who better than to refer to the greatest pantomime villain on our footballing TV screens, Mr. Roy Keane. And here's what Roy had to say.
I would never stand here and say I expect a manager to lose his job, but the pressure, no doubt, from last year. We obviously remember the FA Cup and they got out of jail in a few of the cup games. But the pressure must be building. Whatever he said, I think when you're playing for the big teams, and obviously Man United is one of the biggest, I'd hate this tag if I was playing that you're a cup team and this is what this team, and that means in terms of league you can't turn up week in, week out. I'm not talking about challenging Man City or even Arsenal, but I'm talking about competing with Liverpool, Chelsea, obviously teams like Aston Villa who are at the moment, Spurs are in that mix, and at this moment in time you look at Man United and they're slightly behind them. That's the worry for me, not what Man City and Arsenal do, because I do think they need more time.
Do you just want to see progress? Is that what you're looking for? Is it better performances? Is it a consistency of performances?
So.
Is it a style of play?
And Arteta, when they first got in, but you always felt, and I know Arteta won the FA Cup pretty quickly and Klopp was getting to go, there was this element of he had people behind him, the feel-good factor was coming back. But when you keep getting beaten, like they did last year at home, you finish in 8 and you get beaten well today and you're on the back of a defeat against Brighton, you soon lose that. As I mentioned earlier, when the stadium's getting empty after 60 minutes of the game is over, that will build massive pressure for the manager. Of course it will. It's only natural. But of course I wanted to turn things around. But the longer it takes, and the more you come to matches here and you're getting beaten comfortably by one of your biggest rivals, of course the pressure is going to build.
Daniel, a win for Liverpool based on how Man United were playing, in my opinion.
There's been lots of changes regarding, upstairs or whatever, but supporters want to see stuff on the pitch. Lots of changes. It's the same problems. As well, you ask yourself, can you hang your hat? Are they really hard to beat? Are they brilliant in terms of keeping clean sheets? You go, no, they're very open. Are they brilliant going forward, scoring loads of goals? You go, no, their goals record last year was probably one of the poorest in the top half. So you're looking to try and hang your hat on something, and you come to Old Trafford, you come watch the matches, and you're still kind of scratching your head.
I'm hanging my hat on Ugarte. I believe he's a really good signing, and I think you've seen the stats, how he plays in Europe. He's one of the best defensive midfielders. It's what they need right now. So the reality of it is, if you're talking about breaking down play, transition, all these teams doing all these things, they are very open. His job and what he's great at is helping defensively.
I've no problem. Sorry, but these players were mentioned there, and there's lots to go through, and the lads again mentioned today. There's no doubt these are good players, but I think they're coming from different leagues, and a lot of obviously from the Dutch league that he's worked with before. But the challenge is physically and mentally in the Premier League. I think that's the big challenge. There's no doubt these are good players and they go and play for big clubs in other leagues. But the challenge is the Premiership, that physical, being at it week in, week out. And a lot of these players, because they're now a cup team, don't seem to do it week in, week out. The sign of a really top player and a top team is they turn up every week. And even on a bad day, they grind out a result. This team doesn't do it. Cause them problems. Brighton obviously beat them, and now Brighton are going along nicely. But every game for Man United, I think, will be tough. Particularly, again, when I go back to it, I keep repeating myself, when you make 1 or 2 mistakes and teams are getting at you that easily, then every game's going to be a challenge.
Well, that was quite measured from Roy. He must be playing the hero today. And I look back at the game and I must confess, I'm not too downhearted. I mean, Liverpool were pretty much at full strength, and they're very well drilled, and they're also a settled side, who've also got an extra edge because the players are obviously keen to impress the new manager. And Eric Ten Hag was bedding in 3 new players. He's also got injuries to Højlund and Shaw, 2 key players. And he's also without Ugarte, who I'll get to in a minute. And there's also the added pressure of the microscope. Yes, the microscope. Every little mistake Man United make, every point dropped, Every goal conceded, it's overanalyzed, picked apart, enhanced, and then plastered all over the media as if they'd been relegated to League Two, kicking a granny on the way down. And what's worse is the players like Roy Keane, Gary Neville, and so on, they all seem to be making a living off the back of said mistakes with their overanalysis, and I find it weird. It's almost as if Man United playing well goes against their best interests. So perhaps they are consciously or unconsciously, maybe they're more inclined to focus on the negative perhaps. But what do you think? Thoughts in the comments, please. Thoughts in the comments. Now, I don't think we were that bad. I mean, Matthias de Ligt played well and Xerxes got stuck in, could have scored. And I thought our defence, believe it or not, played quite well. But the problem was, unfortunately, 2 glaringly individual errors from Casemiro. That's what cost United the match. And I'm not demonising him here. Far from it. I'm just stating the facts. And those facts are sad to say. I mean, Casemiro was once a great player. He's in a bit of a decline at the moment. But I think he's been overused by Ten Hag, to be fair. He's more of a destroyer. And he's been used to play the ball out of the back. And I don't know, it's a bit weird. But the point I'm making is, had those mistakes not occurred, then the final result might have been different. Because moments decide games. Moments of brilliance win matches. Moments of madness cost points. Unfortunately, Sunday was the latter. Now, never would I say one man makes a team, but one man does make a difference. Like Eric Cantona, he was the catalyst of an already good United team that made United champions in 1993. And Virgil van Dijk did the same for Liverpool recently. And Erling Haaland was the final piece of the jigsaw for Man City to finally win the Champions League, famously. Now, one man can make a difference, and perhaps that player is Manuel Ugarte for Man United, because any modern-day team needs a solid anchor, so the more creative players can express themselves in attack, of course, with the knowledge that the back four is protected. Now, Arsenal had Vieira, United had Roy Keane, City have Rodri, and, they're all players that patrolled the back four, snuffing out attacks before it could manifest. And that was a big problem for United at the weekend. We were weak down the middle and we were toothless up front. So maybe a bit of steel in the middle of the park will knit things together for us. And maybe, just maybe, that will unleash Bruno, Marcus and Garnacho. We will see. Now, I do feel for Ten Hag. I really do. And here's what he had to say.
We have young players. Also, we have now players to build in the season. Today we had, I think, 3 players first start of the season. They didn't play 90 minutes. We will be fine. But it's clear we have to improve. But in the end of the season, I'm quite confident again. We will have a big chance to lift another trophy.
What makes you confident that it's players that are the problem and not your coaching?
So what do you mean? Tell me then, explain me. Maybe you can explain me which mistakes we make irregular.
Well, constantly turning the ball over in your own half, playing the ball out from the back, getting mugged, chances come on the back of it, counter-attacks when you're outnumbered, giving up endless chances in your own stadium against the team's biggest rivals. With the greatest respect, teams have been seeing that for no longer.
You are sure?
Absolutely.
I don't think otherwise you wouldn't win trophies as we did and to beat big opponents. So I'm sorry for you. I have another vision.
You wouldn't, with the greatest respect, you played brilliantly against City in that final. You almost lost to Cambridge in the semi-final. I mean, come on, let's have a realistic view of what happened there.
I think we won after City the most trophies in English football. So I'm sorry for you.
Now, I don't think any Man United manager gets enough credit at all. Even during Fergie's time, everyone used to wax lyrical about Arsene Wenger. Weirdly, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got to a European final and he finished second and third in the league and he's considered one of the worst managers in Premier League history, which is nuts. Even Jose Mourinho's career has never really recovered since leaving United, despite winning the Europa League and despite finishing second in the league with an average Man United squad. But Man United were just a team that everyone loves to hate. But I would say that despite everything he's done quite well, Erik ten Hag that is, 2 full seasons and 2 trophies, despite constant media hounding and insane injuries, and on top of that, having to deal with a board takeover and unruly players like Jadon Sancho. Now, he's not been perfect. The way De Gea was discarded was horrific, but all things considered, we've been in worse positions. But anyway, what do you think? Can Ugarte make the difference? Does Erik ten Hag deserve more credit? And more importantly, does Erik ten Hag deserve more time? Thoughts in the comments, please. Thoughts in the comments.